Game week 6 was an eventful one with Newcastle defenders running riot and Chelsea assets flopping once again. But looking ahead to game week 7, it's the first double game week of the season and we need to discuss whether we need to invest in those teams. So I'm going to discuss my game week 7 transfer plans in detail in this video. So make sure you do drop a like and of course smash that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. So how did my team get on in game week 6? Well, a quick reminder, I made 2 free transfers going into this game week. I sold Ben Chilwell and Nicholas Jackson, and I brought in Kieran Trippier and Julian Alvarez, and those were for 2 free transfers. And as we know, Kieran Trippier's monster haul of 18 points basically paid back those transfers. So we'll touch on this team in a minute, but what did it mean for my overall rank? Well, game week 5 was a disaster for anyone that knows. My rank basically quadrupled to 880,000th in the world. But thankfully, I ended up getting a green arrow. And now my overall rank is 607,000 in the world off the back of 81 points scored in game week 6. So I am more than happy with that game week. And we need to remember, game week 6 was a very popular time for some managers to use their wildcard chip. So if you've done well this week without a wildcard, then that is a very good week because you know you're up against a lot of managers who brought in very, very popular players who did well, like Salah, for example. If you didn't have him, he was a big impact on your overall rank this week. So looking at the general players, Pickford, of course, coming in with his customary 2-pointer. I'm hoping game week 7 will be the first time I actually get a clean sheet in my team. But look at the defenders. Estupiñán, even though they conceded, came up clutch with those 6 points. Ruben Diaz, a really nice differential, 6 points. That has been a long time coming for the team. But obviously the big one was Kieran Trippier. If you watched my previous video, I was debating saving 2 million and bringing in Botman. Botman would have been perfectly fine, obviously getting that goal from a Kieran Trippier assist. However, as I discussed in my previous video, I wanted to go for the player that had the bigger upside, the highest ceiling off the back of my disaster week in game week 5. And thankfully, Kieran Trippier repaid that initial investment that I've made into him. And it looks like he's going to be one of the most popular players being bought into game week 7. So I'm kind of a game week ahead with Trippier, which feels really good. Yes, it means I've got more money tied up, but realistically, I don't know where else I was spending money right now in my squad. Moving into the midfielders, Mbeumo back-to-back blanks. Something to look at maybe later down the line, but the fixtures continue to be very good for them. Fernandes coming up with that 10-pointer. That was massive because a lot of managers have been giving up faith for Man United, moving away from him. Those proved to be differential points as well, which was much, much needed. Obviously, his teammate in Rashford, not good. 3-pointer. We're going to come on to that in a minute. Maddison with the 9-pointer. That was massive. And also Bukayo Saka with the 13-point. Those two are going to be incredibly hard to sell. And I think those are probably going to stay long-term in my team. Last up the forwards, Alvarez, the other transfer, only a 1-pointer. We're going to discuss him because I think there is an argument maybe to move away, but again, we will touch on that in a minute. And Haaland, perma captain, coming up with his customary 6-pointer. Steady Eddie right now. Nothing, no dramas there really. So 81 points for game week 6. Kieran Trippier basically being the hero this week because it was looking like a red arrow prior to that Newcastle game. So more than happy with this. However, going into game week 7 with 1 free transfer, I do think there's still a few question marks about my team. And while I don't want to use my wild card right now, I think there are a few players that I want to own that I need to start building my team towards. So let's get into that right now. I wanted to quickly use this part of the video just to show you the difference in overall ranks right now, because I know some people had a bad game week and I want this to be the glimmer of hope for you. So this is the gap to different ranks in the game so far. So remember, I'm currently 607,000th in the world. So I'm only 3 points away from being in the top 500k, 6 points away from 400k. But the one I'm looking at right now is a top 100k. You can see I'm only 21 points behind that. So basically, I get it right now. You might be falling down the ranks. You might be a millionth, but it isn't like 100 points to get yourself back into the top 100k. It's only one good game week in some scenarios. So for me, I'm looking at that top 100k thinking 21 points away is massively achievable. All we need is a few good game weeks, a few correct picks, even sometimes not making a transfer can be optimal. Getting yourself closer to that team that you want. And then if you need to wildcard, you can later down the line. But for me, I think 21 points away from the top 100k is seriously achievable. And to be honest with you, even 41 points away from the top 10k, look, we're only 6 game weeks in. I am very optimistic I can claw that back in the next 6 or 7 game weeks. Okay, so first up for my team going into game week 7, I need to make a decision on these Man United midfielders because they just aren't really going big week in, week out. It is very, very hard to predict right now what Man United are going to be like and what these two are going to be like. Because at the start of the season, they just look like obvious locks for our teams, but they just haven't been consistent enough to justify paying 9 million for Rashford and 8.5 million for Bruno Fernandes. Now, obviously, Bruno Fernandes came in clutch in game week 6 with that goal. Big haul for a 10-pointer, but it just hasn't been consistent enough to say to ourselves we can lock him in for the long term. Because when you look at the fixtures, these fixtures long term scream to me tough sells. I don't look at any fixture during this period and think to myself, I need to sell these assets. Because look at game week 10 at home against Man City. That should be an obvious time to move away from the double Man United. But then Fulham away in game week 11 and Luton at home in game week 12. And even prior to that, Sheffield United in game week 9, a team that have just conceded 8 goals at home to Newcastle. I think Man United are not going to score that many against them, but they could definitely cause problems for Sheffield United. And prior to that, Palace and Brentford at home. Now, I'd actually argue the next 2 for Man United from a defensive perspective are tricky. Both of these teams are good. I'm not expecting Man United to beat these 2-3-0. And that does say to me, maybe is it time to move away from the Man United assets? But as I mentioned, game week 9, that looks like a fantastic fixture for them away against Sheffield United. Now, looking at the underlying numbers for both, you can see here, this is based on per 90 minutes. XG and shots are in Marcus Rashford's favour, which we would totally expect because he is playing more of an advanced position in this system. And it's worth noting, even though Højlund's come into the team, he is still playing quite centrally. He's coming off that left flank, and Fernandes is still playing quite centrally as well, which is a good thing from an FPL perspective. He's able to make those runs that we saw Johnny Evans pick him out for the goal. In terms of shots in the box, of course, in Rashford's favour, well, 3.38 per 90, but expected assists, attempted assists is always going to be in Bruno Fernandes' favour because that is basically why he's in the team to be the chance creator and obviously a goal scorer when he can be. So looking at the numbers, they're not terrible at all. They are not bad at all. Rashford's actually putting up sometimes like better XG than Mo Salah is, worth noting, in terms of non-pen XG. So although Man United are really not hitting the ground right now, them and Chelsea are just so hard to predict with their assets. Crystal Palace at home, tough fixture defensively. I'm not expecting loads of goals in this game, but is it a desperate sell? I think the answer is no. Unless you have a really easy route to do Bruno Fernandes to Mo Salah, for example, I think you just hold your Man United assets, and that's something that I'm deliberating right now. I don't have an easy way to Mo Salah, and for that very reason, I think making no move on the Man United assets, gaining one more game week of information is a better move than doing the sell. Now, I mentioned his name. Mo Salah is a big reason why a lot of FPL managers are either wildcarding in game week 6 or game week 7, or trying to restructure their team to be able to bring him in for a Man United midfielder, most likely. So first up, how's he actually been performing in the league so far? Well, those that know with the Liverpool narrative that's going around, he's become more of a chance creator in this Liverpool team rather than a goal scorer. And the numbers do suggest that. He's currently top for all midfielders for expected assists per 90 at 0.64. However, he's third best for midfielders for XG per 90 at 0.64. But the big thing that we need to note here is that he actually has had a few penalties over this period. His non-pen XG per 90 is only 0.38. So these are not the numbers that we used to see in Mo Salah. He's usually around the 0.64 for non-pen XG. Now, we need to say this. Having penalties is not a bad thing at all. This is a much more favourable thing for an FPL asset. Like, having penalties is a big swing why you should own a player than not own a player. However, in terms of open play, he definitely isn't getting the big chances that we're accustomed to seeing in this Liverpool team. I don't know exactly the reason for it. Obviously, Darwin Núñez being in the team, he is more of like a Haaland character where everything funnels through him with the big chances. We've seen it if Gakpo plays, if other players play, then Salah becomes more of a inverted winger, being more of the centre forward. Where Darwin plays, everything goes through him. And it does suggest to you maybe if Darwin Núñez is going to play long term, maybe that is the wise transfer in terms of the high ceiling FPL assets. But we cannot look away from the fact that Mo Salah has been delivering week in, week out for Liverpool. And Liverpool as a team are very, very consistent. As I mentioned about Man United, I literally do not know what Man United team is going to turn out week in, week out. However, with Liverpool, I know that even if they have a bad day at the office, I expect them to score at least 2 goals per game. And I really think that is the team that we need to start looking to invest in long term. Looking at the fixtures, you can see game week 7 is away against Spurs. But after watching the game against Arsenal, especially someone like Udogie, I think Salah is going to have not a field day against Spurs, but he's definitely going to get opportunities against them. And Brighton as well in game week 8, we're getting deeper into a situation where they'll have more Europa League fixtures. I think there's going to be a lot of rotation in there. And even if they do play their strongest team, I don't think they're going to have enough defensively to contain Liverpool. So I think both of these upcoming fixtures on paper are tough. And while Liverpool might not win them, I think they're definitely going to score goals over that period. And then we get to game week 9. And this is the time where everybody is going to have Mo Salah. So basically, if you don't have Mo Salah now, and you're not looking to wildcard anytime soon, you need to build a strategy to bring him in, because I can guarantee you that in game week 8 or 9, everybody's going to pull the wildcard and he is going to be the first man on that list. So you need to have a strategy going forward. And for me, I want to try and build a plan where I can get him in through free transfers. Otherwise, if I get to the stage where I can't and I get to game week 9, I will literally pull the trigger on the wildcard potentially just to get him in, because Everton at home, Forest at home, Luton away, literally don't come any better. And I would not be surprised if he goes on a mad one over that period. So, as I've said here, why is he a tough buy? The 12.5 million price tag just makes it very difficult to do a simple move from Bruno to him unless you have loads of money in the bank. So, although I would love to have Mo Salah for game week 7, because I don't want to pull the trigger on the wildcard, I only have 0.2 million in the bank, I'm going to go without Salah for probably game week 7 and 8, while building a strategy to bring him in for game week 9. But if you want to buy him for game week 7, honestly, it is a good move. So as I've discussed, the midfielders are probably going to stay with Man United. I'm going to have to avoid Mo Salah. So the transfers that I need to make for game week 7 are looking less and less. But one controversial transfer that may be considered is Julian Alvarez to Carlton Morris. Now, for those that don't know, Alvarez started in game week 6, which was fantastic, but he was an early substitution. However, this was mainly due to the fact that Rodri got red carded, and unfortunately Alvarez was one of those that needed to be sacrificed for Pep to shore up the team. So I'm not reading anything into it. The fact that he started and he had opportunities in that game suggests to me that he'll be perfectly fine for game week 7, as long as no injuries do happen during the midweek. So you're probably sat thinking, why the hell are you considering selling him? Well, I'm not saying I'm going to sell him, but I just want to say that Carlton Morris probably should have been a bit more considered in my transfer strategy than what it first was. Now, at home against Nottingham Forest, Julian Alvarez only playing 50-odd minutes and not getting any returns. It's just, I feel, bad luck. I think he definitely could have done well with the numbers that I've seen in that game. But looking at the fixtures coming up, Wolves away isn't necessarily an amazing fixture. I don't think Wolves get destroyed week in, week out. Then they're away against Arsenal, tricky fixture. Home against Brighton, which I think for an offensive assets is a very good fixture. Then away against Man United. So quite unpredictable fixtures coming up where I don't necessarily know if Man City are going to be scoring bags of goals over this period. Now, what I do like about Julian Alvarez, as I said, the stats are good. He's on set pieces, which is fantastic. But the fixtures long term are tough for Man City assets. Whereas Carlton Morris at 5.5 million has a double game week, and I get it. It's a Luton forward. He isn't going to be scoring bags of goals. But we saw in game week 6, it doesn't matter how he plays. It doesn't matter how Luton play. They have penalty. He is going to take it. And that is a big factor when we are looking at FPL options. The good thing about him, he's cheaper at 5.5 million. So you've got a bit more cash to spend elsewhere, especially if you need to have maybe a Mo Salah plan. The problem, he's only viable for game week 7 because after that, Spurs, Forest, Villa, Liverpool, and he's a Luton forward, as I said. You're going to want to sell him after that. So if I turn back time, I probably would have bought Carlton Morris and looked at it and thought 3 fixtures versus 2 for Julian Alvarez. But we need to remember the wild card was so strong in game week 6 and he was being bought by literally a million FPL options that if we avoided Julian Alvarez and he did go off against Forest, that would have decimated the overall rank. So I think the situation is this. If you move with Julian Alvarez like I did in game week 6, I think we just got to make our bed and sleep in it and accept that Carlton Morris's double is probably just one to avoid. Alvarez to Morris makes sense on paper, but I think it is a transfer that you're going to make and then you just want to move away from straight away. I think we back the Man City options, we back the game time of Alvarez and hope that away against Wolves, because Rodri's suspended, Pep might go for a bit more of an offensive setup and get the win there and pray that Alvarez gets a hat full of goals. With all that said and done, here's how the Game Week 7 team is looking right now. 0.2 million in the bank with one free transfer. And I'm looking at you, Pickford. Luton at home. This has to be the first clean sheet of the season for me. I am praying to the FPL gods. Surely this is the moment. Looking at the defence, Kabore, I think I do have to start over a Stupinan. It pains me because the Stupinan's rank is so big. He could easily get a goal and assist in that fixture. I'm not expecting a clean sheet, but Kabore with the double, Everton away, Burnley at home. I think his game time's pretty good as well. I'm happy to start him and just pray that a Stupinan doesn't come up with that double-digit haul that he definitely can. Ruben away against Wolves. If we get some indication that he may get rested, then I will just simply put a Stupinan in for him because I think Ruben is going to be a transfer out in game week 8 when they play Arsenal, but I will discuss that in future videos. And obviously Trippier at home against Burnley. Do I want another Newcastle defender in this team? I would love one. And maybe a consideration if we do get indications that maybe Ruben Diaz is going to get a rest for some reason, but it seems to never happen. So I like the goalkeeper and defence. My major worry is that I don't have double Newcastle defence, what I know a lot of wildcard teams will already have. Midfield, as I said, I'm happy to stick with the Man United double up. I would love Mo Salah in this team, but I just don't have an easy way to get him in right now. And I'm pretty happy with this team. I think Spurs can score goals against Liverpool, and I'm hoping Mbeumo can start to get goals once again, or penalties, which seems to be his only way of scoring. And looking at the front two, Alvarez and Haaland, end of the day, Man City forwards, playing in the best team in the league against Wolves. I shouldn't be worried about that. Yes, Carlton Morris will look good on paper, but I think Alvarez will start this fixture, and I'm more than happy with this Game Week 7 team. So the current time recording, it looks like I'm going to roll my free transfer and start to build a strategy of bringing in Mo Salah and maybe another Newcastle defender into this team. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. What would you do with this team? Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you so much for tuning into this. And importantly, let me know in the comments section, how did you get on in Game Week 6 and what are your current Game Week 7 transfer plans? If you have any questions, as always, I will answer them in the comment section throughout the entire week. So do not be shy, get in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you drop a like and smash that subscribe button. And I will see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.